issues.
I mean, but when you look at our energy sector, the market never decides. There's always subsidies. So when you say open it up, remove the ban, let the market decide, that wouldn't be the truth either, wouldn't it?
Well, so long as you're not isolating one source of energy from another, and this government has demonised carbon capture storage. They've taken away the support that we had to those gas and coal companies, coal-fired power station companies that wanted to invest in reducing emissions in their traditional industries. Okay. So you've got to have a technology-agnostic approach. You've got to be fair in the money that you're using for Australian taxpayers' money, but you've also got to think to the future about how we get an energy mix, not have a concentrated mix, and then how we actually make sure that we get that reliability, affordability, and drive down our emissions without having to look at end-of-life products like wind turbines that we don't know what we're going to do with. In waste for nuclear, let me tell you, there's a product that Australia has created, Synrock, created here about actually making the waste into a synthetic rock that's stabilised. We've already got the know-how here in Australia. Why wouldn't we change the culture of this country of finding reasons why not to do things rather than saying, let's do it and we know how and let's make it happen?
Well, it sounds like you'd keep the same pool of government support, subsidies, whichever way it is, but some of it would be redirected from renewables to nuclear. Is that right?
Well, and if we can spend less, even better. But why would you put all the concentrated risk into one energy source? Well, you're not going to need the $80 to $100 billion worth of transmission lines that this government has to spend.
Well, yeah, but there's always a valley of death here. There's always a valley of death, and that's what has stuffed our reliability from successive governments. You'd have to say, not making good decisions. So, what happens in the interim?
Well, how's it a good decision? Yeah. How's it a good decision to put all your concentration risk into one energy source and then increasing the risk of that being less reliable by having thousands of kilometres of new transmission lines that you've got to pay for, when you can cut the costs and you can have a long-term, stable, reliable energy source that plugs in where existing coal-fired power stations are, that transitions straight across. That's a common sense solution of a uniformed and sensible transition to making sure that we reduce our emissions and using the sovereignty of our resources we have. That should be planned out, and that's what we've got the time to do.
What's the timeline?
That's why you should have that conversation and have the courage to lead that. Now, the Nationals have been on this for a decade, and it's taken Peter Dutton to lead the Liberals to join us on this, and that's why it is time critical that we start this conversation and finish it now, open the marketplace up and make sure that the signals, the investment signals are sent so that capital can flow. And that is what good leadership would look like at a national level. But the Prime Minister doesn't even have the courage of his conviction to say that it doesn't stack up by taking away the ban. We could walk into Parliament next week and fix this. Yeah,
sure, but you did have a decade to do it whilst the coalition was in government, and now you're doing it in opposition. I know you say that Peter Dutton's now with you on it, but for months and months, you've been talking about small-scale nuclear. Then we read in the Australian newspaper last week that it would also involve large-scale. Is that true?
Well, and this is where you look at where the market would make that investment, and you shouldn't curtail a marketplace where capital wants to flow into. But what you do have the capacity, as I articulated earlier, where private investors can go behind the meter and actually build their own SMRs and not be part of the grid and have their own energy source, that they may also look to do that. So why wouldn't you be, as we've always said, technology agnostic? And we've been very clear as Nationals, we've supported this, and obviously it's taken the leadership of Peter Dutton to bring the Liberals to it, but we've come to a critical juncture where this government has brought its net zero by 2050 targets to 2030, and it's putting a whole lot of pressure on our energy grid, but also Australians' wallets.
So we're always tight for time here, David, so I'm conscious of interrupting you a lot today. But if I can just finally put this question to you. Say, open the market, there are already investors that want to get involved here, just if the government got out of the way. Who are they and where are they? Because Andrew Forrest is one of the richest men in Australia, is very high profile in the renewable space now, and he says it is built on a lie, this whole nuclear debate.
Yeah, well, look, Twiggy Forest is all about self-interest, not national interest. But when you see less than 6 months ago in the AFR, Deutsche Bank made it very clear publicly that they had private investors prepared to come and behind the meter invest in nuclear energy. Also, as I've said, there are coal mines in central Queensland prepared to undertake this. Robert said Baker, who has a lot of experience in the energy sector, owns a coal-fired power station today, is in the Australian, saying, yes, this makes sense. When you've got industry group, you've actually got the unions, and you've even got the South Australian Premier saying, let's actually face up to this. We're going to need it. Let's get on with it, and let's have the courage of our conviction to come forward with this, take away the ban, and back Australian know-how to get this up and going, to give us affordable, reliable energy. And if I'm wrong, I've got the courage of my conviction to be proven wrong, Laura. I have no problems that if the marketplace is open up and it doesn't flow... The problem is you might not be proved wrong
for another 10 years, and you might not be here to accept that.
But with all due respect, we've got time.
Career, sure.
We've got time. Yeah, by popular demand, that can happen to me. But you know, you got to be honest about this. We've got an opportunity to get this right by 2050. We're not walking away from our international commitments, but we don't need this folly of bringing it all forward to 2030, because that's why Australians are hurting and why regional Australians are bearing the brunt of it at the moment.
All right. Thanks so much for your time as always. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Laura.